Hello and welcome into the Edward Jones Chatting Cage. I'm Tony Luppin. This show is all about you, the fans, because you get to ask the questions of today's guest, Colorado Rockies reporter and broadcaster Jenny Cavnar. There are two ways to ask a question. Click the green button below and sign up or sign in for your chance to ask that question live. Or tweet us using the hashtag Chatting Cage to get your questions in. Without further ado, let's bring Jenny Cavnar into the Edward Jones Chatting Cage. Jenny, thanks so much for joining us. It is a thrill to have you on. You understand the significance of what you did earlier this season, and we're going to get to the first Twitter question, which addresses it. What will you remember most about your first play-by-play broadcast during this regular season? That question asked by Vanessa Davis on Twitter.
I mean, Tony, I'm going to start with I blacked out for the whole broadcast, so probably not much, no. It's crazy when you think back. It was such a whirlwind. I got one chance at spring training to do a game, doing play-by-play, and then I found out on a Sunday morning I was going to be calling a game, filling in for Drew Goodman on Monday night. So I really didn't have more than 24 hours to think about it, prepare for it, and maybe that was a blessing in disguise. I had to just kind of rely on the fact that I've been working in baseball for 12 years and get behind the microphone and do what we do best, and that's talk baseball and act like we're doing it in a living room. So I hope that came across. I think what I'll remember most about it is I got to use a signature home run call, fire up the fountains that had come to me the day before on that Sunday when I started preparing for the game. So it was just a joy. It was a lot of fun to work with my broadcast partners that I often get to work with on the pre and post game show, but then to do it during the span of a game was pretty awesome.
We appreciate your modesty. You were outstanding in that effort. Next question for you. Nicole Thomas on Twitter. Where did your love of baseball originate?
You know, I never really got the chance to fall in love with baseball. I was born into the game. My dad was a longtime high school coach. So for better or for worse, I was often at a baseball field growing up. And we were actually just reminiscing about the story over Father's Day of going to my dad's camps during the summer. And I had two options. I could just sit there, kind of play with my coloring books, hang out, or I could grab my glove and go participate in the camp. And my dad says he always recalls that I finally participated, and as the sessions went on and, kind of get repetitive over time, I started taking over. And if my dad missed a step, I made sure that I was there to coach all the other campers up on how to do it the right way. So, I did eventually fall in love with the game as well, and it was just a product of being around it my whole life.
We have a fan ready to ask a question of you on the Edward Jones Chatting Cage. What is your name and what is your question for Jenny Cavnar?
Hi, my name is Addison, and I was wondering, did you always want to work in baseball?
Hi, Addison. I don't know that I always wanted to work in baseball. I think when I got the idea of being a sports broadcaster, it was around football. Melissa Stark was the sideline reporter for Monday Night Football at the time, and it was the first time I was watching television and saw someone that really looked like me and sounded like me and was talking sports like I enjoyed doing. So I think after that moment, it was, I want to be a football sideline reporter. I really fell into the game of baseball. In 2007, there was an opening with the Padres, and I got the opportunity to interview. And about a month into that job, I realized I don't know what I was thinking with other sports. As much as I enjoy them, I was made to do baseball growing up in it, loving this game so much. I really feel lucky that I found that opportunity.
There is a great question here following up on your love of the game. It has to do with the decision to name your son. Riley, 203, why did you and your husband decide to name your son after Vin Scully?
Yeah, we had a hard time going back and forth. My husband comes from an Italian family, and he really wanted an Italian name for a child. And so he kept pointing to the fact that we should name him Vincenzo. And I did not want to go that far. So I said, I'll settle on Vincent. And it was really kind of the only name we both agreed upon. And my husband grew up a big Dodger fan, obviously listening to Vin Scully. And I had the opportunity over the years that I worked in this game to meet with Vin, talk with Vin. And as great as he is in the game of baseball, he's such a wonderful person. He's so warm and kind. And about a couple of years ago, we were at Dodger Stadium just chatting, and it was towards the end of Vin's career. And I just thought in the back of my mind, I hope that I could raise a son to one day become a man that's just so gentle and caring of all people and really interested and present when he's there. And that's kind of where the first thought was, maybe I could name my son Vincent. We'll call him Vin. And I'm really glad we did, because my son so far in his 8 months of life is very warm and smiley and caring.
Very well said, and I hope he sounds as good as Vin did when he would say, pull up a chair. It's time for Dodger baseball. It's time to welcome in a fan on the Edward Jones Chatting Cage with Jenny Cavnar. What is your question for Jenny?
Good afternoon to you, sir, and good afternoon to Mrs. Jenny Cavnar. How are you doing today?
Hello, I'm great. How are you?
I am doing great, and this is a wonderful honor. You are definitely making a difference in your life. You are an inspiration to all of us. My question is, do you see yourself in the near future from now mentoring others to accomplish this prestigious platform of being a broadcaster that you are?
Oh, that's a nice question. I really hope that in my career, I've been able to give back. There were so many mentors that I had in my life that took the time, whether it was a cup of coffee or a conversation, or even allowed me to come shadow them at their job before I got into doing what I do. And anytime I get an email or someone at the ballpark reach out to me, I try and accommodate as best as I can, and just give them any piece of advice and wisdom I can pass along. I think that's the name of the game, is making sure the next generation has goals that they can pursue, and is able to, have a lending, or have a person lend their time to kind of help them accomplish what they want to.
Following up on that concept, the EDJ question of the day is this: what advice do you have for aspiring young women who want to get into sports broadcasting, particularly baseball? That's our question of the day.
Yeah, you know what I always say is, number one, know what you're talking about. You have to know the game of baseball. More than any other sport, I think hockey is a very similar sport in this regard. You really have to know the ins and outs of it. There's so much in the game of baseball that can go on beyond the box score. So really, you have to know the game. I think number two, you have to have a passion for the game. You have to have a passion for what you're doing, and that doesn't just require a passion for the game of baseball. That requires a passion for people. I mean, we do a lot of storytelling, and I think that's one of the best parts of my job, is getting to know players as people and getting to share their stories and their journeys and how they got somewhere. So I would say those are two great steps. And number three is know how to network. You have to meet people. You have to have ins at different places. At the end of the day, you have to be good at what you do, but it always helps along the way to have a helping hand.
Well said. How about this question? Because in terms of impact, I can't imagine it being much bigger than what Victoria Lee asks about on Twitter. You obviously received congratulations and praise from all over the country following your first play-by-play broadcast in the big leagues. But what was it like to receive a message from Billie Jean King?
She's the GOAT, right?
Of
breaking barriers. And when you talk about that name, Billie Jean King, and what she did for women all across the country, and not just in sport, it really transcended that. I think we're still talking in 2018 about women in the workplace not getting paid an equal amount as their counterparts that are males. It's something that's still going on decades later, and she started the conversation so long ago that if you're good at what you do, it doesn't matter what your gender is. And I think that's a conversation still relevant today. So I was honored just to be mentioned in her tweet. But she has a hashtag called He for She, and I feel like I live that every day at work. I get to work with great analysts: Ryan Spielbergs, Corey Sullivan, Jeff Houston, Drew Goodman, who we work with. They all have supported my endeavors over the years to get better, to try something new. They were all right behind me when our producers gave me the opportunity to do play-by-play, and they were in my corner. And without their support and without them telling me, you deserve this job, and it's not just because you're a woman, it's because of the amount of years you've given to baseball, that was awesome to have those guys in my corner.
Earlier, you talked about being an expert, and we know you are, over a decade in the bigs. Let's zero in, using your expert opinion, on this year's NL West and how you see the division shaking out.
It's so hard. I think going into the season, when we all make predictions, you could look at the NL West and say it's one of the best divisions in all of baseball. And then that thing called injuries seemed to plague just about every single team. When the Rockies went out and spent a historic amount of money on their bullpen, I thought that was a really big missing piece. Obviously, the bullpen as of late has been the Achilles heel of what the Rockies have been trying to do. And with this great offense that they have, they really haven't shown up. But I do think the West is anyone's game to be won. We've seen the Dodgers go on a big tear. We know the Diamondbacks have been up and have been down and up again. So I just think it's going to be an interesting race down the finish. And once these teams start playing each other a bunch of times in August and September, I really do think it's still anyone's game.
We will watch it unfold. We continue to be intrigued by the ongoing stories. Time to bring in another fan on the Edward Jones chatting cage. What's your name and what's your question for Jenny Cavnar?
Hey, Jenny, this is Andrew. And I just have a question in terms of what's your favorite road city to go on with the team, and why is that?
Hey, Andrew. I think we're really lucky in the National League West. I'm biased, but I think it's the best travel in all of Major League Baseball. You get to hit California up 3 times in San Francisco, LA, and San Diego. You can't beat the weather out there in those places. I started in San Diego covering the Padres for 5 years. I think Petco is a beautiful place. But I would have to say my favorite ballpark and my favorite city overall is probably San Francisco. Just so much to do, so many places to eat in San Francisco, and AT&T Park is gorgeous as long as it's not sand freezing, which it sometimes can be in the middle of July.
That is funny. We've touched on the way that you were received. Among the many things that I read and listened to prepare for today's Chatting Cage, Nolan Arenado had great things to say about you being not just a credible reporter, but excellent in that play-by-play stint that you had. He had wonderful things to say about you being someone that people could learn from in terms of watching the game and listening. Turning the tables now, your opinion of Nolan Arenado and the season that he's having with the Rockies.
Yeah, well, first of all, that was really kind. I feel lucky in my career to cover such a star like Nolan Arenado. We saw it budding when he was in the minor leagues and finally getting that opportunity, getting the call up late in April in 2013. The guy's one of the best defenders you're going to see in this game, and I think in decades to come we'll be talking about the fact that he is the best third baseman all time. I mean, I've heard Michael Jack Schmidt say that to my face in him getting to watch, and we know that Mike Schmidt was a pretty great defensive third baseman. So it's really impressive what Nolan does, but I think what's even cooler is outside the lines getting to watch Nolan prepare. This guy is a baseball rat. I mean, there's a point where people have to actually drag him away from a cage on the off day because he's still trying to perfect something in his swing. If you watch Nolan walk around the clubhouse, he'll be, talking to somebody, and all of a sudden he'll stop and he'll just kind of get in his motion and start taking some dry hacks in the middle of the clubhouse. And getting to know Nolan's family over the years, they're a wonderful family, and they definitely have raised him right. And Nolan really does have a big heart and has a big heart for the community. And I know he really appreciates the position and the platform that he has. But at the end of the day, Nolan wants to win. Nolan's one of the biggest competitors out there, and each and everything that he does in preparation is for that ultimate goal. He has all the hardware in this game personally, but he wants to make sure that this team can get back to the World Series and win the World Series one day.
Clearly, the esteem is mutual between you and Nolan. Last question for you, and we appreciate you making this time. It comes from Twitter. Liam Dunn, what's the most memorable interview you've conducted, and why has it stuck with you?
Man, that's such a hard one. There's so many over the years. I feel, again, just in such a cool position to have interviewed so many great people in this game. I actually had a first that was pretty special for me as a kid growing up in Colorado. The Rockies came when I was 10 years old, and I fell in love with the Blake Street Bombers, and Larry Walker was my favorite player. And over the past 7 years of covering the Rockies, I've never gotten that opportunity to just meet Larry and shake his hand. And we were in Miami this year, and he was sitting behind home plate, and I got the chance to go over and interview him during the game. And it was actually a couple of weeks after I had just done play-by-play, and I was riding this high, and then I get to meet Larry and interview him in the game. It was pretty special to talk to a guy that you grew up, and he was your childhood hero.
Goosebump stuff there. We were talking about Ben Scully earlier. It's not just having the good stories, it's being able to tell them well. That's what sets you apart. Thanks so much for joining us, and good luck to you and the Rockies the rest of the way.
Hey, thanks so much, guys.
That's Jenny Cavnar. Thank you, fans, for joining us and making this show go. We'll have more shows later this season, so check back here for the next edition of Edward Jones Chatting Cage. I'm Tony Luffman. We'll see you next time.